Okay, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to kick off the program, and so at this time, I would call on Reverend Ruther Jackson to give us our invocation.
Thank you. Let us pray. Gracious God, our Father, we thank you, O Lord, for this blessed day. Father, we thank you for the rain. We thank you for how you have guided us through and brought us safely thus far. God, we bless you this morning. We thank you for all things, God. And then, oh Father, we ask that you would look on us today as we stand firm on issues that hinder us, issues that others need support. Father, we thank you right now that we will be able to speak and speak loud enough that we will be heard, God. And not only heard, Father, but action will follow after that. And oh God, we know that when you are in the midst of, we know that things begin to change. And we invite you in this day, and we ask that you would allow us to be used by you so that others may be helped. Father, it's not about us, but Father, we're here to help those who are in need. And God, we want to say it loud that we don't mind standing up for the disenfranchised, the unfortunate, those who are seem to be less than others in the way in which we think in the way of law, God. We ask, oh Father, that you would strengthen us now as we move forward. We ask that you would keep us as we move forward, and then bring those on who are on their way, God. Strengthen and keep them as well. God, we thank you for moving even in the rain. We thank you for allowing us to celebrate the number of years that we have been on the wall, the number of years that we have been watch persons on the wall, God. We thank you today. And oh Father, bless now our efforts and all that we are determined to do for the benefit of your people. It is in the matchless name of Jesus the Christ we do pray, and we all said amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Jackson. At this time, we would love for the shepherd of this house to give us greetings. So the next voice you will hear is Reverend Kate Culver here with Central Presbyterian. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I just want to add my welcome to our church. We are a church that has a long history with y'all and are delighted that you're here. It is fitting that you're in our sanctuary. We are a church that is in the city and for the city, and we support you in all your work. Please come back anytime. Anything you need, we're right across the street. I'm praying for a fruitful day, and again, delighted that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor. And now I'm delighted to bring you greetings on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Georgia State Conference of the NAACP. Happy Founders Day. Come on, y'all. Y'all do better than that. Happy Founders Day. So 115 years ago today, a group of freedom fighters thought it not robbery to convene and address the issues of lynchings in America. And so was born the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And over the last 115 years, legends have been made, laws have been changed, truth has been spoken to power. And so I think it's only fitting that on the 115th birthday of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, that we are across the street from the most powerful building in Georgia. Because it's time for us to speak truth to power. It's time for us to remind people that we are the association of freedom fighters that has stood the test of time. Now, it hadn't always been easy. It hadn't always been rosy. Many times we've had to fight both the oppressor and the oppressed. but we have stood the test of time. And in this Georgia State Conference, we have seen the birth of legends. We have seen individuals fight the good fight and win. And so the greetings that I bring you on behalf of the Georgia State Conference's Executive Committee is that we are fired up and we're ready to go. We're ready to fight voter suppression. We're ready to fight the rollback of rights, both civil and human. We are ready to push back against the rhetoric that would take us back to either 1950 or 1850 in this state. And so it's an honor to bring the greetings. I know both our national board members wanted to be here. One is stuck in traffic because it's the most Atlanta thing to do on a Monday is to rain. And, you know, we know what happens to our interstates when it rains in Atlanta. But on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Georgia State Conference, we are excited to see so many of our units. On behalf of the 13th president of the Georgia State Conference, I'm just honored to see everybody. I'm happy to see y'all. And what I can say is I'm super excited for the speakers that we will have. We will have members of the ACLU. We will have Pro Georgia. We will have the Legal Defense Fund. We will have our Partners for Souls to the Polls. We will have the Georgia Coalition of Black Chambers of Commerce, the Georgia Alliance for African American Attorneys, the Indigence Project, the American Red Cross, the National University, and others address you. But we will also do the most important business that we came here to do this morning and this afternoon, and that's address our legislature, address the state senators, address the state representatives, and who knows, maybe we'll get a chance to talk to the governor and the lieutenant governor. But we need to make sure they understand that we will come down to this house. We will make sure that the laws are fair, just, and equitable. And if they're not, we're going to march, we're going to protest, we're going to litigate, and we're going to educate voters and push them to the polls. So whether it's SB 202 or redistricting, which are both live cases at the Northern District of Georgia, which we fully expect to win, whether it's the mobilization of voters both for the presidential preference primary, which is next month, or the primary, which is in May, or the general election, which is in November, we are ready. We got a 73 county strategy that we're going to turn out this vote. We're going to mobilize, we're going to strategize, and then we're going to implement. So on behalf of the Georgia State Conference, I'm fired up, excited to see y'all, and I bring you greetings on behalf of the Executive Committee. So with that, we will pause in the program. Again, our national board member, Ed DuBose, I know he is en route, and so hopefully he'll be here in a few minutes to bring you greetings on behalf of the national board, and then we will talk about the purpose of the NAACP Day at the Capitol with our chair, Political Action Chair Vivian Moore, and then we will shift into our speakers. We all also know that at 10:55, unit presidents will head over to the state capitol to meet with our legislators, and then we have a full slate of speakers from 12:20 to lunch, and then more speakers from 1 to 1:45. And I will say this, I wish I could be with you guys all day, but there's a certain judge in DeKalb County that's expecting me at noon, and I don't want to be in jail today. So I will be leaving probably around 11:30, but know that I'm only a phone call away, and my eyes will be both in the courtroom and on these proceedings. So with that, I do see our political action chair. I'm going to give her a moment, but she will come up and give us the purpose of the NAACP Day at the Capitol, and following her, hopefully, our national board member, Edward DuBose, will be here for greetings from the national board. So with that, I will turn it over to our political action chair, Vivian Moore, for the purpose of NAACP Day at the Capitol. Hope traffic wasn't too bad.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And it is a beautiful morning with all of that good sunshine that's coming down, right? But we're glad you all are here, and I am just a pleasure to see each and every one of you. The purpose today, the purpose is to continue what our ancestors has already started for us in 1909. And what we're going to do today is learn the roadmap to continue what they started. For instance, we need to build new roads. We need to build new bridges. We have to build new streets. And so today we're going to learn how to do that. There are several speakers that are coming on board today, and they will give us the roadmap to make sure that we can accomplish those things that our ancestors put before us. We need to learn about how can we prevent some of the discrimination that's going on. What about the suppression of voters' rights? All of that is very important to us, and we will learn new avenues to do that. So the purpose today is to learn and is to educate and to network with each other, because so many of us don't see each other, don't talk to each other, but it's a communication thing and as well as an educational. So I really want everybody to don't sit back. I want you to be alert and ready, because one thing we know about the NAACP is that we're what? Fired up and ready to go. So thank you all, and that's the purpose for today. We will have a good day, even with all the sunshine that we have right now. Okay? All right. So next on the agenda is, I don't have my agenda. Thank you. We have to support each other. Okay, so next on the agenda is we will have, okay, let's see. Is Reverend Walker's been here? He's not here? Oh, hey, Ms. Ruther. Good morning to you. Okay, so since we're down at the purpose, let's go on with the, did we want to do an opening prayer, or did we do that? I'm just coming in out of the sunshine. Okay. Okay, so then we'll move on with the next person on is ACLU. Do we have Attorney Christopher Bruce? Where's Christopher Bruce? He's always with us. Okay. Let's move on, and when he comes in, we'll just switch him up. Was that okay? All right. So now we just will have the next attorney is Attorney Fallon McClure. They're not here, ACLU? They're coming, they're on the way? In traffic.
Attorney Gala is going to do hers and Chris Bruce's.
Okay. So, Attorney Chris Bruce. We down to this one.
Is Denise in on the vote here?
Denise, I don't see Denise.
So the one that we do have that is here.
We're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
So, Denise is not here. When they come in, we'll fill in those gaps.
Hey.
Vincent, are you on?
Yes, he's here. He is ready. He's supposed to go on that road. He's on here.
But you know what? I used to be a Girl Scout, and we have to be ready, right? Okay, so we have Mr. Vincent Terry, and Mr. Terry is supposed to be all the way at the bottom, but he's at the top this morning. And he did your project? Yes, and did your project. So we'll have, let's give him a hand, Mr. Vincent Terry.
Well, first let me say thank you to the NAACP for inviting me to come here today. Today is a great day, and what makes the day great is because you're here. I was just talking to the group from Henry County, and I told them how much I miss Crystal Lake and the things that I enjoy down there. We talked about playing golf, something that I cannot do, but there's something that I can do. And what I can do and what I have done over the years is to help to introduce legislation that will change the advancement of colored people. Now, I'm with the Innocent Project, and somebody asked me, what's the difference between the Innocent Project and the Innocence Project? Well, the Innocence Project is the project after one have already been convicted, even if they were innocent. The indigent project is the project that we take those cases before they're convicted and try to stop them from, to give them a fair representation in their hearings. Let me give you a little bit of history about our program and where we're from and some of the things that we've done over the years. Anybody ever heard of the No Child Left Behind program? We wrote the preamble to what you know as the No Child Left Behind program. We wrote that originally under the Clinton administration, which later passed under the Bush administration. It was a program that we tested in the Atlanta public school system here back in 1994 that later became law under the Bush administration, but was introduced under the Clinton administration. You've heard of the minority homeownership in 2005, 2001, where President Bush wanted to increase homeownership to 5 million in 2001. We met that goal under the Bush administration. We wrote that program for the Bush administration. Race to the Top program, we wrote that for the Obama administration, and we wrote what was called the bank bailout plan. You remember when we had that 2000 collapse of the economy? So we wrote what was called the bank's bailout plan, something that none of us really liked. But what we recognized, and what I recognized for my family, that if I didn't do something about it, my family was going to be probably more affected than anybody else. We were so poor that we could not afford a mosquito, a wrestling jacket. And so I decided that if I'm in the position and if we had access to the president, that we should use that access for the advancement of color folks. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right now, we have some legislation now that we're putting before the House and some things that's coming up right now. And let me tell you some things that we're working on. There has been, by 2030, in the United States of America, there will be 130 doctors short. Now, that's just doctors alone. That has nothing to do with how many African-American doctors or doctors in underserved communities. 130,000 doctors short by 2030. By 2032, we'll be 150,000 attorneys short. Now, that's just attorneys at whole, not having to do with what's in the minority communities. And so what we're introducing, two of the things that we're doing on next year is introducing legislation both in the State House and both in Congress that would allow for minorities and people of color to go to get education at the high school level, to be taught about the first year of law school and the first year of medical school, where they'll get college credit and they won't have to pay anything. That's the legislation that we're passing. But we're also we're also introducing into legislation where those persons would have the ability to go to college for medical school and law school. And if you know anything about medical school and law school, it is very expensive to go to medical school and it's very expensive to go to law school. But there are some things that stop us from getting in those schools, and we call these barriers to entries. There's examinations that we know nothing about and have no preparation for. And so there are fees, $70,000, $80,000 a year in order for us to go to a medical school, and $50,000 and $60,000 in order to go to law school. So what we decided is that we'll put a piece of legislation in place, or we'll introduce some legislation that will do these things, that will reduce the cost of going to law school from $60,000 to $15,000, to reduce the cost of medical school from $70,000 and $75,000 to $25,000. Those are some of the barriers to entry because they know we cannot afford it and they know we cannot pass tests. We work with the American Bar Association to help to change some rules over there. There was something that was called the LSAT, which is a very difficult exam, and even myself had problems trying to figure out what the heck they were talking about. They were talking about logistics and puzzles and games, which had nothing to do with the practice of law. And so what we asked the American Bar Association is, hey, let's put some testing in place that's fair to all, not just fair to some. Some of my colleagues from Westminster School, they were playing games and logistics ever since they were in kindergarten. So when it came to taking those tests, they were already prepared. The students from my school, and I taught at Washington High School here in Atlanta, Booker T. Telfair Washington High School, and for the people back in the days, we would call it Wadena High. And so what we noticed is that a school that Martin Luther King and a lot of prominent African Americans attended that schools. And so what we learned is that how do we balance the scales of justice? How do we balance the scales of education? How do we balance the scales of the financial industry? I've served in many capacities as the president of the National Minority Mortgage Bank Association, where I found out as president that there were two sets of rules when it comes to financing. We had 3,500 members of our association. Now, this was funny, and I think the National Minority Mortgage Bankers Association. I changed the rules to the game as president. And what I did was I said any company under $25 million in asset can be a part of the National Minority Mortgage Bankers Association. 65% of when we changed the rules, 65% of our members were white in the National Minority Mortgage Bankers Association. I did that for a reason, because President Bush asked us to increase the number of homeowners to help him to increase for minorities to 5 million. And we did not have enough African American lenders in the United States of America, so we would have never been able to meet that goal. So what I did is I cut a deal with some of the other persons that were not Bank of America, Chase and Wells and all those guys, and say, hey, listen, we need you guys to help us to make loans in the minority community. And we were able to make those loans in the minority community and be able to meet the requirement of having 5 million African Americans, minorities, to become homeowners, which would have never been able to happen under any other administration. We changed some other laws. We came something with the called down payment assistance. If you don't know this now, the HUD rules have changed. Now, on a HUD loan, you can now get 100% financing. It's not that we cannot afford the places we're paying rent right now. $1,700, $1,800, $1,900, $2,300 a month. So we can make the payment. It's just trying to come up with the down payment. So we changed the rules again. And so now HUD offers 100% financing, because that was another barrier for allowing us to become homeowners. The banks, we heard of redlining, the act, what is the act? The CRAs, Community Reinvestment Acts. Banks are required to reinvest back into communities. And so what we decided was, hey, listen, guys, just give us an opportunity to own. And some people that I financed back in 1998 still own their houses now. And the equity and the value that they have is more than they could have ever saved at any point in their lives. Can we continue to make changes? Can we continue to do things different? Yes, working together, we can do anything. The NAACP one of my famous cases when I was in law school, we talked about Brown versus the Board of Education. We still talk about that case now. Equal but separate. How can one be equal but separate? And I noticed we used to have on Martin Luther King what used to be called Hunter Street, like a lot of African American businesses there. Citizen Trust Bank used to, but now it's a publicly traded bank now. So so a lot of things are disappearing. How do we change communities? You change communities by doing 3 things that we have to take control of. That's the education system. We must control the system of education of our communities. We must control the financial arena, the system for finances. We must control our equal rights for justice. If you remember back some time ago, there was a senator who had passed a bill that was called the Predatory Lending Bill. What most people didn't know that was really not a predatory lending bill. It was a bill that says that minorities in particular, that if you own a house, if you were going to refinance your house, you had to go to the state of Georgia and ask the state of Georgia for permission before you can refinance your house. I said, what kind of mess is that? How do I have to ask the state of Georgia, can I refinance my house, because they had a cap that who had to go? And the law was at that point that if your house was valued less than $150,000, you had to ask the state for refinancing. I said, that's got to be insane. So I sued the state of Georgia. I sued the governor. I sued the Department of Banking and Finance. I just sued everybody and their grandmama. If their name was attached to the bill, I sued them. So eventually, after that, the governor asked me to drop the lawsuit. And the governor was a friend of mine. The governor asked me to drop the lawsuit, and I told the governor, I said, Governor, when you change the laws, then I'll drop the lawsuit. He said, well, Vincent, go ahead and drop it, and we'll get it changed in the next legislative session. I told the governor, I says, if you are the governor, the next legislative section. So there was another governor that replaced that governor. And that governor had his attorney general to call me and ask me to drop the lawsuit. And I told the governor, was when you change the laws in the state of Georgia that will not discriminate against minorities and try to hold us in some corner, then I'll drop the lawsuit. And so they would not change the lawsuit for a while. So I wrote a letter to President Bush. And here's the letter that I wrote to President Bush. I said, it took Republican President Abraham Lincoln to free the slaves. Now I got to call on Republican President George W. Bush to allow black folks to have fair lending in the state of Georgia. He contacted the governor, and of course they called me and cursed me out and called me all kind of names. But you know, we do these photo shoots in front of the camera, but when we get behind the scene, that's when you don't see what really happened. And I can't say some of the words that the governor said to me, but they passed the legislation. They provided reform for minorities that we didn't no longer have to go and take a class before we can refinance our houses to get the equity out of our houses. And so we passed that legislation. It changed. We repealed the law. And the governor, I remember after we did the photo shoot, it was the funniest day of my life. The governor took the bill. He said, Vincent, here's your effing bill. Now drop your lawsuit. Well, I picked the bill up off the floor, I whipped my thumb, and I told the governor, when the ink dry and you file it with the Secretary of State, I'll drop my lawsuit. Because we have to see it all the way through the end. And that's what the NAACP has done for 150 years. We have the ability to change anything that we want to change. The powers of the courts, the power of the people, the mere fact that you have the ability to go forth and to get people to get out and vote, that's the most powerful tool that you have. I remember working from the Clinton administration one time in North Carolina, and North Carolina was a red state at that point. And so they said, well, Vincent, what are you going to do? Because President Clinton asked me to come and develop a program that he could win certain counties, because they were going to use this as a national model. I took 500 students from Washington High School. I told my principal we were going on a field trip. The thing is that we had to have balance. I had one student that said they wanted to work for Bush, and 499 students that said they wanted to work on the Clinton campaign. Fair enough to me. The field trip went forth. And after the end of the field trip, we were able to win the Mecklenburg County and 5 other counties in North Carolina, and President Clinton used that model for getting out to vote early for elections throughout. I was called by President Al Gore. We did the exact same thing for Al Gore. I get called by Republicans and Democrats. And I remember when the Bush administration called me and asked me to come and be a part of his administration, I told him at that point, I said, I'm a Democrat. He said, we know exactly who you are. That's why we want you on our team. So you can help us to do things for minorities. Count me in. Republican, Democrat, Independent. It doesn't matter to me. My official party, I changed it just a couple of years ago. I am now an independent Republican. And so that independent Republican means for me that whoever supports my agenda to help my people get to whatever is needed. If my people, which are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will heal their lands. And so here's the things that we have here, is that we have the ability to make change. Change isn't change until we change. Working together, we can make a difference. We will make a difference. We must make a difference. I submit to you today the opportunity to do something that will transform where you are now to where you must go. With the vicissitudes of life, the ins, the outs, the ups and the downs, we're faced with problems on a daily basis. The price of gas, people are making life-changing decisions at the gas pump. Hey, whether they buy gas or whether they get something to eat, whether you buy eggs or whether you buy your medication. We're challenged with a lot of things, but we have the power to change. There's no shortage of money up under that gold dome. And so what I decided myself is I'm going to take it upon myself to do something about it. And I will continue to support the NAACP, the ACLU, and all of the organizations that are here to make sure that there's equal justice under the law, equal education under the law, equal financial opportunities under the law. So you guys have a great day today and a better day tomorrow. And just remember, something good is going to happen to you today. I didn't know if this was question and answer time yet or... Okay, that's fine, because somebody said they had some questions. What were those questions? Yes.
My question had to do with the current Senate Bill 63, the cash bill that also criminalizes churches and other organizations from providing assistance.
Did you want me to, let me give you this microphone right quick and do this because I want them to hear this.
My question has to do with the current Senate Bill 63 that is the cash bail bill that requires certain categories of people who previously did not have to provide cash bail will now have to do it. And one of them is, for instance, is marijuana offenses, which we know predominantly or overwhelmingly impacts our community. It also criminalizes churches and other organizations who provide normally bail for our people. With your project, do you expect that you will file a lawsuit or do anything to prevent it from going forth? We know that the governor is probably going to sign it. They've already said that. And how can we address it? And what should we be doing?
That's an excellent question. And here's where we are with the Indigent Project. Our organization we represent indigent people. For example, people who don't have the ability to get an attorney. If you go to court without an attorney, you are screwed. That's just the bottom line. I worked in the court system. People with attorneys get deals. People without attorneys don't get deals. And so you are right about that Senate bill, and you're right. People of color are mostly the ones that are affected by that. And if we are incarcerated as a result and they have to pay cash bail, it's hard to get a regular bond talking about a cash bail. I remember earlier we already having problems at the gas pump. We're trying to make life decisions at the gas pump about what we're going to eat. And so now we have to make a decision about a bail for little Ray right now. Oh, it's going to be tough. So if the NAACP asks us to join in on that lawsuit, our attorneys will join in. We have Hall and Lampros, who are our lead attorneys. The entire firms have just made all of their attorneys available to us. The attorneys out of Hall and Lampros of Alabama, some attorneys out of what is California? I just kind of remember the states, California, and we're adding another states. So in law school now, my class are actually donating time to help these legislations that you feel to be important to you. We don't follow the legislation like NAACP. That's what you guys do. What we wait for is you tell us, say, hey, we need some help on this legislation, or we need you guys to come in and file a lawsuit, or we need you to bring a party who has standing, because if the person don't have standing, it's going to be hard to get that lawsuit. So there are some hurdles that we have to overcome. We're on board with you guys. If you guys tell us, hey, listen, we need you in, we need your attorneys to come in and help on this lawsuit, we need some help on the research, hey, count me in. I love a good fight. Any other questions? Are we done?
Are there any more questions to him? Okay. Let's give him a hand. And again, we learn from each other. So thank you so much, Mr. Terry, because now we know we can call on you for support. And to learn these different types of resources, we have to all get together and network. And so if you have a card and you want to give out to...
Can I just give my number?
Yes, you can. He's going to give his information, contact information.
So real quickly, Madam, the president from Henry County is going to give it, she's going to give it to her place. But let me give you my telephone number. And this is a cell number. Don't give it to everybody, but give it to everybody. 404-772-6168. That's easy than giving out business cards. 404-772-6168. And our website is indigentlaw.org. We actually checked the website this morning, and she says it's up and running. She told me some things about our website that I didn't know about. So it's indigentlaw.org, and that number again is 404-772-6168. And just remember, we working together, we can make a difference.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah. Very interesting, isn't it? Yeah. See, we learn something every day, no matter how old or how young we get. We still are open to learning. I understand that we do have representation here from ACLU. Are they here in the audience? I'm sorry. Oh, you're so cute, Lil. I didn't even... Okay, so you're with ACLU.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're going to represent Bruce as well?
Yes.
Very good. So many of you know about ACLU, but now today we're going to bring it to you personally. She's going to talk about criminal justice.
Mm-hmm. And First Amendment.
And First Amendment. So, and this is Miss Fallon, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So let's give her a hand and welcome her. We need that young education, so help us out, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you like to sit, you can.
My dress might be too short for that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fallon McClure. I am the Deputy Director for Policy and Advocacy at the ACLU of Georgia. So I manage our team, our legislative team at the state capitol, at the municipal level, and at the county commission. I also manage our advocacy team, and so that includes our community engagement events, action alerts, any of those type things. So I'm really excited to be here today. Before I dive into all of the bills that can kind of get overwhelming, I want to encourage everyone. So if you go to our website, acluga.org, and on our home screen, you'll see a blue icon at the top that says 2024 legislative session. And if you click that link, it has our bill tracker. So it'll have a list of the priority bills that we're watching, what posture they're in, meaning what committee they're in, kind of what steps have been taken. And then there's also a link there to a new tool that we have this year called Fast Democracy. And Fast Democracy is a more in-depth bill tracker. And so you can click on any of the bills in there, and there'll be talking points, short explanations of the bill, and then you can also click to follow the bill. So as they come up in committee, and it's an opportunity for you to, email your legislature or contact them or tweet them or whatever, it will be in that system and it will alert you. So for instance, when we brought up Senate Bill 63, as that was moving through the legislature, it would email you alerts as that was coming along. And so that's just a great way to keep up with all the information. Sometimes it gets overwhelming and the bill numbers they definitely get jumbled in my head, so I can only imagine. So with that, I think I will start with the First Amendment. So we have a lot of attacks on First Amendment this year. We had them last year as well. But what's, I don't even want to say unique about these, is there is a sort of mix of criminalizing First Amendment activities and obviously the criminal penalties. So there's always been attacks on our First Amendment rights and freedom of speech, and we've seen these things play out over and over again through history, but these immense penalties that are starting to happen are extremely scary. So there are several bills related to social media censorship for minors. Those are HB 350, Senate Bill 351, House Bill 910. So we oppose all of those. Most of those, again, are just dealing with censorship to minors, but they also give an opportunity or an ability to sue social media platforms for folks that essentially now they would have a cause of action to go after these companies for, I guess, not filtering stuff through minors. But why this is such a big deal is because this also is running parallel with the idea of criminalizing librarians and banning books. And so essentially the point is to ban overall access to information. So if you take the books out of the school, right, and so they're not in the library, you criminalize librarians and make them actually face potential penalties for, having books in their library, and then you censor the information online, then now you no longer have access to, in my opinion, a lot of times the true historical record and fact. And I know when I was growing up, one of the biggest things my mother always used to say to me is like, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you come from, right? And so none of this stuff is new. And this idea, we saw it, with the Daughters of the Confederacy and essentially the rewriting of the Civil War and everything else to fit their needs. And that's essentially what we're having now. And so through all of these methods, they seem sometimes disjointed and disconnected, but they are coming together to stop true history and information. But also along with this, there is this, I guess, turning away from diversity and inclusion initiatives. We've seen this around affirmative action, but also just at the level for teachers and what their standards should be. They're literally taking out the words diversity and inclusion from teacher standards, right? And so all of this stuff is interconnected. Also in the sort of First Amendment space, we have a lot of essentially trying to ban people's identities that are different than others or what people think that they should be. So there's several bills, like there's a Don't Say Gay bill, meaning that teachers and stuff can't talk to, and counselors can't talk to students when they have issues about, well, I don't want to say issues, when they're trying to determine who they are, but also there are, of course, bans on gender-affirming care, bathroom bans, drag show bans, which is very interesting, banning essentially entertainment, and if, parents are able to decide if they want their children to go or not, but to ban stuff outright is I don't know, sometimes it feels like the Twilight Zone. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but it's definitely a lot is happening. Also, we have, there is one good reproductive rights. It's not really First Amendment, but it's kind of in this section just because I didn't know where else to put it. But last year, on the federal level, they passed the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which actually gives more protections for pregnant women and from discrimination while they're working. Georgia essentially had very poor protections as related to that, and so it was very easy to discriminate and fire someone and not have to make too many accommodations. So that passed on the federal level, but there's also a Georgia version of that that's still alive this session that we would hope to pass, and that's House Bill 556. And it has had some bipartisan support. So there are some good things that are happening. Next, I will go to some of the criminal legal reform, and definitely Senate Bill 63 was on my list. So it does, just a little background on it. What it does is it requires cash bail. It's added 30 offenses, including things like criminal trespass, drug offenses, some traffic offenses like racing that will require a cash bail. And why that is such a big deal is that currently about 80% of folks that go through the criminal justice system in Georgia are considered to be indigent, meaning that they're considered legally indigent, meaning that they don't make over, I believe it's like $12,000 a year. And so when you are now requiring cash bail for offenses that are essentially crimes of poverty, crimes of survival, you are now making the system even harder for folks. And especially because we've seen all the issues with the overcrowding, like at the Fulton County Jail, where I believe 10 to 13 people died within 1 year from these horrid conditions. This is going to continue to exacerbate those conditions because when you can't get a cash bail, because a lot of these offenses, you could get a signature bond. Because one of the things that's supposed to happen is when you're arrested, there's supposed to be a true determination of your ability to pay bail. And then based off of that, something reasonable is supposed to be given to you. well, they're taking away that opportunity for the judge to make that determination on a case-by-case basis and saying all of this list of offenses, you're required to post bail. And in many cases, people don't have it, and so they either sit until the resolution of their case, which can be months, years, or they take a plea to something that they did not commit to simply get out of jail. And it's extremely unfortunate. In addition, so this bill actually was introduced last year, and we were able to hold it off last year because two different versions were passed. So one was passed by the House, one was passed by the Senate. So procedurally, what has to happen is they have what's called a conference committee. And so they come together and they try to iron out the differences so they could pass the bill. During that conference committee process is where they added the part about bail funds. And so it's any person, nonprofit, individual that is not registered or like as an actual bonding company, you cannot bail out more than 3 people in a year. And so there's all kind of questions about how this would actually be enforced. When does the year start? Does this now criminalize, churches and nonprofits? And sort of their reasoning for this was some of the things going on with Cop City and trying to criminalize that particular bail fund. However, none of the people that were arrested from the Cop City protest got out on a signature bond. They all had like $50,000 bails. So their reasoning behind this doesn't even add up. It doesn't make sense. So right now, as of right now, the governor hasn't signed it. So I would encourage you to contact the governor's office and share your opposition to this legislation. However, we do believe it's probably likely that he will sign it at some point. But our legal team, so I'm in the policy team, but our legal team is currently working on a lawsuit, and we do plan to sue if and when the governor signs. So yeah, I guess stay tuned for that. Hoping he doesn't sign, but we're prepared if he does. Some of the other bills that are going through under the criminal justice system banner are Senate Bill 7, Senate Bill 36, and 932. All of these are particularly bad because they increase mandatory minimums. And just like how I talked about taking it away from the judge's discretion for bail amounts, this is taking it away from the judge's discretion on how to sentence people. The ACLU is always going to be against mandatory minimums and these enhanced penalties. We've seen over and over, whether it was through the drug wars in the 80s or in previous times, these enhanced penalties don't make our communities safer. They actually make things harder and they make things worse for our communities. And then finally, there are several bills that in various ways are trying to criminalize forms of protest. Those are Senate Bill 359, House Bill 505. House Bill 505 essentially makes a riot a felony. However, it's a very vague definition of what a riot is, and it's mainly just a few people being together and something happens. And so now they're saying that's a riot with felony penalties. There's some, trying to add criminal trespass as an underlying form for RICO. I know we've heard a lot about RICO prosecutions lately, and RICO is essentially a way to, of course it was initially brought about to take down the mob, but now it's been used in Georgia, for teachers, for rappers, for everyone, right? Everyone can get a RICO. And so now essentially they are trying to add crimes as small as criminal trespass to RICO statutes to ultimately criminalize protesting, but also essentially campaigning and stuff. There were things in that bill like misdemeanors about signs are not supposed to be in public right-of-ways, like campaign signs, but they always are, right? So now if you have this and perhaps a criminal trespass, and then someone over here did something, now y'all can all be tried together and face, enhanced penalties under a RICO. So it's really this major attack on, yes, our First Amendment rights, but in the way that they're criminalizing it, it's like they are trying to scare people from speaking out, right? And they see that we're continuing to make our voices heard, we're showing up, and folks are like, I believe they're scared. Georgia is now a majority-minority state, and it has been since 2020, and I think the writing is on the wall about the changes that are happening. But we do have a couple bills that we are looking to get introduced around privacy and surveillance. That is like the new frontier, and the technology is moving way faster than the law. So we are working on a bill around your biometric privacy, which meaning like your iris scans, your fingerprints, all of these things. How are companies collecting them? Are they selling the data? Are they selling it to police departments? How are they using it? Just to put some standards on how your data is used, hopefully sooner rather than later, because if we wait till they've collected everything, then it's kind of hard to go back and regulate it. We're also working on a bill related to surveillance at K through 12 schools. A lot of times companies are going to school boards and saying, hey, adopt this technology, buy it from us, it's going to make your school safer, but they're not actually providing like evidence for how this is actually going to be used, how it's actually going to make people safer. And so this would just mean that it has to be an open process with parent input and parent involvement around the technologies that the schools are buying and how the schools are also using these technologies. So like, for instance, one of the things that I feel like many people don't know is Fulton County schools are in the process of putting or have already put license plate readers at every school, right? And so they do that, they say, because of safety, but now is the data going directly to APD, and like, you know, perhaps maybe you have a warrant or something, but you're dropping your kid off at school, and like the trauma that particularly can cause if you get arrested at school in front of your children, you know, like, so there's just a lot of things that are happening around privacy and surveillance that we're keeping a big eye on. Atlanta per capita, because of the cameras, is the most surveilled city in the country, and it's the 5th surveilled city in the world. So we're only behind London and a few cities in China, right, when it comes to surveillance. And that's because of, you know, they have Connect Atlanta, where folks are opting their Ring cameras in, and all kinds of other technologies. They're using facial recognition technologies, the license plate readers, and all of these things. And they don't always tell us how they're using them and how they're being put together to essentially track people. Okay, I guess that's it for privacy surveillance. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was voting, and then I promise I'll answer questions if there are any. So there are a few good voting bills that are actually still alive right now. There's one for voting rights restoration of people that had prior felonies. Right now you have to have completed your sentence, paid all your fines and fees, and done any community service in order to have your voting rights restored. This one will make some of those hoops a little bit easier to vote. There is an accommodations bill for advanced voting access for so if you come to the polls with children under 5, just the way now if you're over, I believe, 65, you can go to the front of the line, but this would also be, you can go to the front of the line if you have children with you. But there, of course, are definitely some bad bills. There is a Senate Bill 124 that takes away local control for redistricting and reapportionment. As you've seen, lots of lawsuits about the redistricting process are still open from 2020. We had a lawsuit about the House districts. We also have a lawsuit in Cobb County about the school board districts that we're going through, because folks are really trying to draw lines to consolidate and keep their power versus allowing for, you know, who is actually instead of allowing for people to vote for who they want, they are trying to choose their voters. There are several bills to eliminate drop boxes. Obviously, we saw how this was used during COVID and how it helped galvanize communities. The governor himself used the drop box to vote. However, they are now trying to eliminate many of the drop boxes. And there's some other voter challenge bills to make it easier to challenge people to try to get them off the voting rolls. So there is a state election board meeting tomorrow, February 13th, where they'll be taking up some of these issues around, I believe it's around the drop boxes. I'm gonna look at my email. But I will send to you all an email where y'all can submit public comment in support of stuff for the state election board meeting tomorrow, and they will read all of those comments and everything tomorrow. And I think it's just important that we stay involved and engaged. And that's it.
She shared a lot of information, and so I know everybody didn't capture everything, so that's why we're going to get an email with some of these bills that we need to be looking into, whether we support or not support, but we can't get it all into the little 10 minutes or so. So thank you so much for coming. We look forward to an email so we can share with others, because there's so much that we need to be involved in. And we appreciate all the work that you all do, because ACLU has always been out there, and they continue to do a really great job. Thank you so much, Valerie. Now we have our executive director. She's going to give us some directions here on where to go and how the program is to go from here. So far, we've been busy learning, but we're going to do even a little bit more. So join us now as we hear from our executive director, Ms. Tonza Thomas.
Good morning. Branch presidents, raise your hand. Could you please stand up and follow our first vice president-elect, Kip Carr, to the Capitol for another presentation for the presidents. At lunch, at noon, then you will come back over here, branch presidents, and have lunch with the common folk. And then once that is done, from 12 to 1, we're gonna have, after lunch, we're gonna have our executive committee members to go to the Capitol, but that's shortly after lunch. Presidents only. I don't mean interim presidents, folk that want to be president, folk that think they should be president. Excuse me. We are going to do this in order. Gwinnett County, I did not call Gwinnett County. I did not call Brenda Cox. Okay. Madam President, from Rome, Sarah Malone, Jonathan Johnson, Houston County, Dominique Conte, Carroll County, Marissa Kelly, Dalton Whitfield, Charlie Doswell, Cherokee County, Larry Lockett, Waycross, Georgia, Jerome Williams, Columbus, Georgia, President Joy Bates, West Metro. Cynthia Finney, Coweta County, and our second vice president of this state, president of the Henry County branch, Dr. Rosalind Matthews, Edwina Clanton, DeKalb County. All of you whose name I just called. I'm sorry, Madam President. Cynthia Edwards, I'm so sorry. Baldwin County, and our third vice president of the Georgia State Conference and president of the Macon-Bibb County branch. All of those names I just called, including Reverend Ivy from the Augusta, Richmond.
You called Ms. Westbrook?
I did.
We got her.
All of those names that I just called, is there anybody else? Ken Bryant, Fayette County. Y'all know that's a lot I be keeping in my brain. I just called all y'all names and y'all branches. Ooh. So all of you guys are gonna follow Kip, and I'm gonna give the microphone to our first vice-elect. If you want to be president, but you're a president-elect or acting president, this is not for you. These are for the ones who were elected president.
Thank you very much, Madam ED, and I think those instructions were quite clear. To the branch presidents, if you can meet me right outside these doors, and we will go as a group across the street. Thank you so much. And happy Founders Day to everyone. Happy Founders Day.
Thank you, Kim. Well, hello, I'm Valencia with Channel 69, the home of Family Feud. I'm putting together a little short piece about this effort here today to go talk to lawmakers. But I wanted somebody, because I couldn't get here on time, to just quickly discuss the top priorities for the Georgia NAACP this legislative session. If somebody could chime in real quick, would you mind doing that? Or is Gerald here?
Yes, he's here. Yeah,
Mr. Griggs?
Yeah.
He hasn't come back yet.
He didn't come back in.
He said he was going to.
Doing? I'm Attorney Gerald Griggs, the 13th President of the Georgia State Conference, and we are here for our January update on the workings of the Georgia NAACP. And January has been a robust month for the Georgia State Conference. We have traveled around the state, both convening with the Columbus branch for their Freedom Fund, as well as the Baldwin County NAACP for their celebration of the King holiday, where I was the keynote speaker and spoke on making sure we transition from the old movement to the new movement and stay energized in the fight for civil rights and social justice. We've also been standing with the families who've been affected by police brutality. We were present with Deacon Johnny Holloman's family as well as their attorneys as they announced the culmination of their civil lawsuit against the city of Atlanta for the untimely death of Johnny Holloman. We also stood with the family of Vincent Truitt, who celebrated his 21st birthday and continued their dedication to getting justice in the Vincent Truitt case. So we've been doing a lot in the Georgia State Conference in the month of January as we transition into February. We have some big events that are coming up in the month of February. So we are calling on all of our unit presidents and many of our members to come down to Legislative Day at the Capitol, which will be February the 12th at the state capitol, where we will convene with legislators to talk about our legislative agenda and our legislative priorities. But we will also be monitoring bills in the state that adversely affect the interests of African Americans and people of color, and that also help to economically empower those same people. So we are focused on legislation.
Multiply it by a couple thousand, 100 people, it's just bigger. So the NAACP, to me, I want to be viewed larger. I feel like a lot of people, they hear the NAACP, but I know the average person, they can't even tell you what it stands for. Black kids in my class, they can't even tell you what it stands for. So I feel like especially this year is going to be the year of loudness for the NAACP. I feel like we need to come back even more loud, even more proud. And what it means to me is a community. I grew up as an only child, so when I come to NAACP events, I have fun. I enjoy hearing everybody speak. I enjoy learning new things. And especially today, hearing a lot about, I didn't know that there was bill trackers. I didn't know that I could get on my phone and see every day the progress that we make with the things that we fight for. And yes, that's what it means to me. And I'm glad to be here today. I feel blessed. Sometimes I feel like I still got like a sore thumb. I truly believe that NAACP should have a lot more people in their 20s I feel like we should have a lot more high schoolers here. I think they could afford to miss 1 hour today. I feel like they would learn a lot today, and it means a lot to me, especially my college that I go to Georgia College. We do not have an NAACP at the college itself, and on top of that, none of the college students are in our chapter, so it's kind of like, what are we doing? What are they doing? And we have a Black Student Alliance. They post everything for Black History Month, but throughout the year, no, I don't see my college at my NAACP events. I felt like I had to beg them my first 2 years to come into some of these events. So I don't beg, I show up, and I hope that with me showing up, they see that, hey, this is good. I tell them I feel welcome here. A lot of people my age, they don't know how to communicate with some of their elders, with some of the people that are older than them, but y'all want to teach us. Y'all aren't judging us, and I feel like any other judgment is heightened on social media, because when I'm here with you all today, I don't feel judged, I don't feel overlooked, I feel ready to learn, and I'm glad that I got to learn today.
And you did well.
She did really well. She had no idea that we were going to call on her, and for her to get up here and do so well, thank you so much. This is what we have to do. As we begin to get younger and younger, we have to bring on someone to make sure that we can, continue that torch to burn it. I have a torch that's here today, and she was president of the Albany State College. Jasmine, stand up, Jazz, come on. And now Jasmine, when I met Jasmine, she was the president of the Albany State, and she has been with me ever since. And now she just joined Air Force, right? Yes. Say a few words. That's what we have to do. We have to mentor. As we begin to get younger, we have to bring someone along with us. And she's been right by my side ever since. So thank you, Jazz. Tell them a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Good morning, everyone. How y'all doing today? Yes, it's a beautiful day despite the rain. Personally, I love rainy days because to me they symbolize the power of refreshing and renewing. And after a strong, heavy rain, everyone knows the sun shines. So I hope you all woke up this morning feeling powerful, ready to fight the good fight. Yes, so a little bit about myself. As Ms. Moore mentioned, I've been with her. So the story how we met, and I'll keep it short, I don't know how much time I have, but funny story. So like Nyasia, did I say that? Like Nyasia, I was at Albany State University, and I looked around and I said, man, we don't have no NAACP chapter. We don't have nowhere to go to just be ourselves, to be in a position where we want to advocate for change and really make a difference. And I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with Albany State, but it's in a small town in southwest Georgia, and before I went to school there, I never knew about it. So when I looked out and I seen things, I said, wow, this is not, I can't stand for this. This is not something that I was raised and I was born and I was taught to just walk past things and think that they're okay. There's no reason why the crime rate should be so high in such a small town that's predominantly African American. There's no reason why the education system should run how it's running. And I know these things because not only was I a witness driving back and forth from campus, I was there, I was in the streets, I was jumping off the porch, I volunteered, I did things that I knew was necessary to make a difference in my local community. So long story short, we advocated for an NAACP branch at Albany State University. We made it happen, had an amazing turnout. I did not know that my first year of joining the NAACP at Albany State University would be the year that we had to advocate for voter rights at the polls. So this was something that opened my eyes to real life. This was something that I never thought that in 2016, 2017, I'm going back in time to when my grandma and my mom and all of them have already shed the blood and already put in the work. So to say that Nyasia, she's here today, and this is a very important moment for myself because similar to you, I was in that position where I knew that I had to make a change. I didn't know where to start, but I knew that with the NAACP, what they stood for now 115 years, that a change was possible, and that it was within me and my peers on campus to not give up and to advocate for that change. So by the grace of God and those who believed in us, like Ms. Moore and others, we were able to get things done at Albany State. The chapter is still running, so it's a lot of good things that's going on. It all takes just having faith. But to the point that I was making how I met Ms. Moore. So one day we had an NAACP convention in I'm laughing because Lord have mercy, in San Antonio, Texas. And there was a lady there by the name of Ms. Brown who worked with the Youth and College Division. And every year the president there sponsored the trip to go to the convention. So I said, oh, I'm going to the convention. But I never thought about how I was getting there. So Ms. Brown said, we got to drive. I said, what? We're driving from Albany to San Antonio, Texas? I said, well, what time we leaving? Where are we meeting at? So we got in the car and we drove about 14 hours. And my grandma, she, bless her heart, she called me and she said, you know, Miss Moore gonna be there. I said, who is that? I don't know who you know, but she always told me that life is all about the people you meet. So I was sitting at the table at the morning banquet, and I was sitting next to Miss Brown, and Miss Moore came and sat by us. I didn't know who she was. Miss Brown said, that's Miss Moore right there from the Georgia NAACP. I said, what? That's who my grandma told me I'm supposed to meet. So, yeah, that was, and from there, like she said, we've been running ever since. And Miss Moore, she is such a blessing to my life. She's a testament of what hard work and dedication and community look like. She is the epitome of everything that you want to be as a Black woman here in Georgia and in America that really wants to advocate for change. So if y'all don't know Miss Moore, y'all need to get to know her. She makes stuff happen. She's the one. But again, I do want to close out by saying that, for one, thank you all for blessing me with this opportunity to speak. I didn't come up here planning to do anything, but knowing Miss Moore, you always got to be prepared for anything. So let me put my face on and let me get ready, because I know that today will be powerful. Today will be something that I look back on next week or a year from now when it's time to go vote in March and in May and November. And I'll look back at this moment and know that on a rainy Monday in Georgia, we sat in this historic church on this historic day, the 115th day of NAACP founders, and we came together. And we did something that a lot of people don't get an opportunity to do, and we did that with passion in our heart, with the fire in our spirit, and a longing for change. And I think that's something that, it don't matter where you go, it stays with you. So, I wish you all a happy day. Let's keep on keeping on. As she mentioned, I recently joined the Air Force Reserve. So it's bigger than me. It's bigger than us sitting in this room. It's bigger than what I go out and see in my community and I'm dissatisfied with. For me, it's about never stopping that cycle of change. And it doesn't matter on what level you wish to fight, just don't give up and keep going. So thank you again. Thank you for all the speakers that are here today to bless us with this information and to keep our spirits full of joy and learning something different. And as always, thank you, Ms. Moore.
You're welcome. I personally have adopted her, okay? I have sons. I didn't have any daughters, so that's my daughter. But I really want you all to know the one thing I found that we need to do more of is to assist them with finances, because many of them want to do more, but they don't have the funds. So we need to make sure that we help take care of our young people. One thing I want you all to do, if you can, is look up some of the scholarships to help our young people. I am involved with several different scholarships, and one in particular that drew Jasmine was that, and we funded, was it 3 years or 2 years that we gave you funding? But anyway, there's an organization called the Southern Freedmen Scholarship, and what they did was they gave $2,000 every year that you were in school. And so we were able to get that out. And then another thing that we could do is always look and see where the scholarships are for our young people. I am also a person that is employed with the YMCA, and I see the young people every day. So one day a young man came up to me and he said, "Miss Moore, I got to go because I'm at Gwinnett Tech, and I got to be there because it cost my mama a lot of money." I said, "Well, did you try getting any scholarships for anything?" He said, "I don't know anything about any scholarships, and neither does she." So we have to try to educate ourselves and our children. There's an organization that I was involved with for many, many years with my son, and it's called Inroads Atlanta, INROADS, Atlanta. And they not only give scholarships, but they give internships. And I was just blessed to be in a position where I knew where some of these resources were, only because I was at the time employed with the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. They also give scholarships. And for the AU Center, let's go to it's called the Strickland Scholarship. That is with the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. Help our young people. Do what you can. Look up some of these scholarships and internships. My son was so fortunate, he worked at Peachtree Software in Gwinnett County. I didn't know nothing about it. But they not only gave him the scholarship, but they employed him there. And so that was the first thing that we need to do is how can we help young people that are here? They want to be educated. We want to be educated. Many of us didn't have these kinds of opportunities, but I am blessed to say that we are in a Mecca where we can teach others. So that's what I want you all to do. If you don't do anything else, every one of us, as we get younger, we need to make sure we bring somebody with us, okay? Bring a young person with you. That's what the Founders Day is all about. You know, they started it in 1909. And we are still standing strong to this day. That is a true blessing. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that that's so important, right, Reverend Rufy? Yeah, it's so important because we will die and the program and the whole system will die if we don't bring our young people. So I don't go anywhere without somebody young by my side because I'm a young lady too, you know. That's right. Oh, thank you. But now we're going to we're going to get lunch ready. So how many of you ready for some lunch? Oh, okay. I want you all to stand up for a minute and let's just make sure that we feel good, look good. You already look good, but just stand up and give yourself a little bit. Okay, yeah, stretch a little bit. Okay, now that feels better, doesn't it? Just there you go. Yeah. That's right. Okay, so we're going to have box lunches today. And I know one thing for sure, we're in the sanctuary because there's a lot going on in the church. So we cannot have any drinks in here. The caterer has brought drinks, but we can't drink it in here for fear that someone will waste. Yeah, I'm sure you could drink it out there. So, oh, Reverend Smith is here. Hey, Reverend Smith. What time is it? Time for you now? But we're going to get lunch. And so, if you will, I'm not even sure where the restrooms are because I rushed in. The restrooms are here. Okay, great. So if anybody want to take a break, just 2 or 3 minutes and come right back. And then we're going to have lunch. And we have Reverend Stanley Smith is here. And he's going to talk about rise to the polls, and so he's been all over the place with a lot going on, but we'll introduce him. But right now, if everybody needs to take a 2 or 3 minutes and come on back, let's say a 5-minute break, okay? Is that good? Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm Attorney Gerald Griggs, the 13th President of the Georgia State Conference, and we are here for our January update on the workings of the Georgia NAACP. And January has been a robust month for the Georgia State Conference. We have traveled around the state, both convening with the Columbus branch for their Freedom Fund, as well as the Baldwin County NAACP for their celebration of the King holiday. where I was the keynote speaker and spoke on making sure we transition from the old movement to the new movement and stay energized in the fight for civil rights and social justice. We've also been standing with the families who've been affected by police brutality. We were present with Deacon John Holloman's family as well as their attorneys as they announced the culmination of their civil lawsuit against the city of Atlanta for the untimely death of Johnny Holloman. We also stood with the family of Vincent Truitt, who celebrated his 21st birthday and continued their dedication to getting justice in the Vincent Truitt case. So we've been doing a lot in the Georgia State Conference in the month of January as we transition into February. We have some big events that are coming up in the month of February. So we are calling on all of our unit presidents and many of our members to come down to Legislative Day at the Capitol, which will be February the 12th at the state capitol, where we will convene with legislators to talk about our legislative agenda and our legislative priorities. But we will also be monitoring bills in the state that adversely affect the interests of African Americans and people of color, and that also help to economically empower those same people. So we are focused on legislation in the month of February as we are transitioning in our legislative session. We have to keep an eye on what's happening in the Gold Dome. And that's why it's important, again, that you join us on February the 12th for our Legislative Day at the Capitol, where we will be convening with legislators to make sure that our legislative needs are met in the state of Georgia. On that, we were also proud to join with the Gate City Bar Association, the DeKalb Lawyers Association, and the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys for a roundtable legislative conversation between the judiciary and the legislative branch. It was a powerful event at the home of John and Audra Bay, where we convened with the most powerful members of the judiciary, both from the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, and many of the Superior Court judges and municipal court judges, as well as our federal judges, and members of the Legislative Black Caucus, where we talked about the interest of African Americans and people of color. We focused on voting rights. We focused on economic empowerment. We focused on criminal justice reform and making sure that the Gold Dome understands the needs of hardworking Georgians, especially hardworking African American citizens throughout the state. So I was happy to be a part of that panel and have that discussion, and we have pieces of legislation that will be dropped very soon that address those needs for criminal justice reform, police accountability, as well as economic investment into African American communities. We're also hearing that coming very soon, there will be a piece of legislation to address reparations and the repair that needs to happen here in the state of Georgia for individuals who are descendants of slaves in this state. So a lot of robust conversation going on under the Gold Dome that affects the interests of African Americans. With that, we are fired up and ready to go. We are ready to move forward into the month of February. Of course, we have our executive meetings. We will have our general membership meetings, and we will meet at the Legislative Day at the Capitol on February the 12th. So if you haven't joined with a unit or you need to get back active, please join with a unit of the state conference as we are moving forward and we are standing up units around the state and we're reorganizing. We are happy to announce that the Albany-Doherty County has already started reorganization, and again, there are several units that are up for charter consideration from the National Board. So I'm hopeful that we will get information on those units and provide it to you as we move the state conference forward. I'm Attorney Gerald Griggs, the president of the Georgia State Conference. This has been our January update. I look forward to engaging with you at the Capitol, and I look forward to a robust February as we move the state conference forward. Please stay connected. Follow us on all social platforms at the Georgia NAACP or on the website www.georgianaacp.org, and I'll see you at the next update.